and I moved here for 2 years without my wife and kids. So, we all make sacrifices in life and in jobs and everything. But it was tough to move without, do a lot of commuting, but pretty much spend 2 years of my life here. But it was because I firmly believe that this is the way all businesses should run.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 5 here on Smack. For this one, we spoke to Mark Somen, CEO at the Conduit, and he talked to us about the challenges of a members club, the topics of sustainability, the ecological system behind the Conduit and their expansion plans, and also a very important side topic about what it takes and maybe what it doesn't take to be a good leader in hospitality. Enjoy, we'll see you next time. Okay, Mark, thanks for being here, first of all. Thanks
You're welcome.
for having us at the Conduit here in London. I'm going to start with a very easy one to get us rolling. Would you explain in a couple of sentences to people who've never heard about the Conduit and your concept and what you guys stand for, in a couple of sentences, what you guys are?
Sure. So we're
Great start.
You see, I should always practice this. What are we? So we're a private members club, and I think what makes us different from a traditional private members club is our ethos, where we're building community around positive social change. So in all elements of the business, so from the community of members that we have to how we hire, recruit, nurture, support our staff, the sustainability of the building, our food and beverage, it's all sort of with this philosophy around positive social change.
And linked to that, from what I understand, and for the time that we've known each other, I know that you guys are especially proud of your events and the stuff that you do in the house here with that. Give me an example of one or two events that you guys have in the building here that kind of characterize, your focus on the whole positive social change, sustainability, and that area.
Sure. So actually tonight we have our co-founder is interviewing Professor Muhammad Yunus, who's sort of the grandfather of social impact. That's tonight. 3 weeks ago, we had a fireside chat with Al Gore talking about climate change. So it's just all these events. Christiane Amanpour did a chat about the future of news and what's going on with news, fake news, all of that. So always topical and always using these events to both bring members together so that members meet each other and hopefully collaborate, but also to inspire, to have people learn more about some of these themes and hopefully catalyze people to change and do good.
Yeah. In the kind of the world of members clubs where it's all about you have to be a member to get in, and it's that form of exclusivity and all of that, and it's usually the thought process behind that for members is I need to pay a lot of money to get into this. Now I realize obviously making money and having a profitable business is probably a good idea, but explain to me why maybe that's not your number one motivation, or in the concept of business, you understand what I mean.
Sure.
And by that, because I do feel that the way you guys emphasize what you do and what is part of your ecosystem and your culture plays a large role in most of your decisions, if not all of them.
Yeah, so it's been beautifully refreshing working for a company like this, where certainly in the 2 or 3 years before we actually opened, so many of the conversations were, how do we create impact in the world? How do we track our impact? How do we find out from members what they're doing once we open the doors? How do we give more value to our members? All these conversations before we started talking about the bottom line. And of course, we have to make money. We have investors and we have fiscal responsibility to do that. But there's a deep understanding that if we're going to be authentic in what we want to deliver and what we want to do and have impact in the world and create value for our members and create value for our staff members, that money will come, and it's starting to come. So that's one thing. And I think secondly, we have a half price membership for people working in the charity, foundation, social impact space. We have half discounted membership for younger people. We have memberships we give away to people who are just doing amazing things in the world who absolutely can't afford the membership, and then we figure out once they're in the building, how can we make sure they can also have a cup of coffee or a beer or a lunch or whatever. So it's a different concept that just continues to add to our soul, I would say.
I mean, you come from the world of private members club with your history in the US and with Soho House. We can come back to that a bit later. But was social responsibility and that vision also the number one reason why you joined the Conduit from day one? Because you were there already before, when it was just a concept, an idea, as you also just mentioned.
Yeah, it was totally the ethos of what we wanted to create. The reason why I'm working here. I mean, and it was a big decision, as you guys know. I was living in New York. We were going to open in New York, and then we decided to open first in London. And I moved here for 2 years without my wife and kids. So, you know, we all make sacrifices in life and in jobs and everything. But it was tough to move without, you know, do a lot of commuting, but pretty much spend 2 years of my life here. But it was because I'm firmly believe that this is the way all businesses should run. Like there's no two ways about it. This is how businesses should run. We should be driven by what are we doing in the world? What are we doing for the planet? What are we doing for humanity? So it was definitely the reason why I'm here.
Mark, you will forgive me for saying this, but I imagine your life has become a little bit easier in the past couple of year and a half, maybe 2 years, where the whole idea of social change, climate change, sustainability has become increasingly popular. I realize there are some presidents of some countries that still think it's a fad, but let's exclude that from this conversation for the sake of the discussion. Do you think that, you know, there's a lot of controversy about the whole topic, whether it's too late, and, you know, there's certain ice plots that have vanished or are melting is probably just the very tip, quite literally, of the iceberg. Has it become easier to raise awareness for what you're doing here and to why it's important that businesses, like you said, run the way they do? Because I would imagine if we speak to the majority of Fortune 500 companies 10 years ago, let's just say sustainability probably wasn't on top of the priority list.
Yeah, I think our timing has been great, and certainly sustainability, climate change, absolutely, it's on everybody's tongues and voices, but not just that. It's you know, it's justice and equality, and it's gender, and it's, you know, we don't want to get into a political discussion, but, you know, when Trump was elected, things shifted. You know, living here in the last 2 years and the whole Brexit that's going on, you know, so I think there's obviously people are understanding that we need to take responsibility. We can't only we should rely on politicians. We do rely on politicians, but we also have to take responsibility. I mean, you know, Extinction Rebellion that was just unbelievable in this city and around the world. So I think
they were huge.
Yeah. Even Nairobi, there were demonstrators, protesters. So I think our timing we've been fortunate with our timing, sadly, right?
We follow, or myself, I followed the Conduit already for I think 3 years now. When we first worked for you guys through Lausanne in our hospitality project for the concept, and back in the days, it was for me very inspiring why you said for social responsibility and for helping that, why you decided to actually create a private members club, why you think that this is the right medium and the right way how to connect people to create change. Can you just give us some insights about that and how that, now looking back at the first year here in London, what you guys have achieved already, and or especially your members have achieved?
Sure. So I think you know, my very fluent start to this podcast, where I stumbled and stuttered because we you know, we had
we're not cutting it out.
This is a one take kind of thing, Mark.
Great. Wait, you said okay. Anyway, so we had months of saying, how do we define ourselves? How do we describe ourselves? You know, we don't want to say private members club. but we're a private members club, because private members club has these connotations of, you know, exclusivity, and certainly in Mayfair it's white and it's male and it's wealthy, and that's not our membership, you know. But this whole sort of velvet rope, and you have to pay to get in, and you know, and we want to do amazing things in the world, but at the end of the day, we're a private members club. You have to become a member, you pay, you come in if you're a member. So that's what we do. Our co-founders really want to create a space where we could have these powerful conversations and amazing meetings, and so there's an element of curating the community, because it's not just, you know, you're good enough for us, you know, are we good enough for you? Are we right for you? Are we the right place that you want to come and meet people, entertain people, have meetings, connect with people, learn? So that's the private members club thing, and why I stumble and stutter, also because I'm old, but anyway. And the success is, so we've been open 13 months, so maybe by the time this airs we'll be open 14 months. We've got 3,400 members. We have so many people who on a daily basis talk about how positive this is a force in their lives. And we have, I mean, through our events, so many people who have been inspired by various events that we've been having to go on and do great things. I was talking to this incredible founder member of ours. Her name is Shan. She created something called the Plastic Planet, and through here there've been some amazing new connections that have been formed, as well as for us. She has this thing called a commitment mark. That's a commitment to reduce your use of single-use plastic from one year to the next, and we track it. And so we're doing that with her, and we're trying to get exposure for other organizations to be doing things like that. We have something called Conduit Connect that we have. We find organizations mostly through our membership that are social impact businesses that are looking to grow and develop, and whether that's with funding, or whether that's with board members, or whether that's with support. So we've taken those companies and exposed them to our membership, and members can come and get involved or not get involved. And there's been, I think in a year we've raised for three companies through Conduit Connect, our community has raised £4.1 million for that. So I mean, it's just a start, and we want to continue to do more, but there's real tangible things that have happened in a positive way.
Mark, if we listen to you talk, which I think is enlightening for starts, again, thank you for being here. It sounds like obviously you guys have a very clear idea of where you're going with this, and somewhat, you know, the impact is already trackable after only 13 months. If I look at the greater perspective again here with you know, people understanding the need for social change, and most of them probably do by now. There's so much at the moment where people can get involved. Reducing plastic, you know, the ways we travel, questioning that, and so on and so forth. Is there in your very subjective opinion, is there a risk of over informing the communities at the moment of all the things that they're doing wrong in their lives that are causing, you know, the environment and some social aspects to not work the way they should? Or is it maybe a good thing that there's so many awareness campaigns, whether it's the little girl from Scandinavia or you know, the projects that you've mentioned now? Is it a good thing that there's so much information out there right now of how we could do things better?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know.
Next question.
I think that certainly there are people in society who there's just such an overload of information, and what is messed up, and what is going wrong, and what we've screwed up in the planet, that there's a sort of shell shock factor that's like, it's information overload, and I'm just dumbed into doing nothing. I have to disagree that I think we have to keep getting more information, and we have to be educating ourselves. Like the more, I mean, I'm a massive conservationist. I grew up in Kenya. It's, you know, animals, the environment, very close to my heart. And you hear about the poaching problem with elephants, and that, potentially if poaching continues the way it is in the next 12 years, there will be no African elephants left on the planet. I mean, that's shocking to me. If I have grandchildren, they won't see elephants in the wild, and I've been blessed to see elephants in the wild. There's apparently less than 415,000 elephants, and I just read yesterday, and I think I'm pretty educated in conservation. There's less than 35,000 lions. Less than 35,000 lions, and they're an endangered species, but you don't hear as much about lions than you do about elephants. So I think we need to continue to be educated, and we need to educate ourselves, we need to educate others, we need to get the word out so that we can act in whatever way is right for us.
Do you think it's also, especially that we're connected to the nature a lot? I mean, myself, I started my career in hospitality, actually working in a conservancy in Kenya, where the challenge was to be able to get rhinos into the Borana Conservancy, and there's a very high security level which you need to have, like nearly armies at night to make sure that no poachers can come, and it's hugely expensive. But I just saw that they're just the connection to the nature of the people running it. For them, sustainability, for them, their environment was just part of their DNA. And here in the big cities, we're so far away of that a lot of people, they don't see the damages. It's just numbers for them, which they can't really relate to. Can you see that disconnect and from the different parts of the world that you know?
Sure. I think it's, you've seen it with your own eyes when you actually see it, when you see a rhino in the wild and you see this magnificent beast that is on the edge. I mean, in the last 3 years, the northern white rhino has gone extinct. There's a species of rhino that has become extinct in the last few years. So I think absolutely, if you see it with your own eyes, it makes it so much easier to contribute or make change in whatever way. But some of these conservation organizations do an amazing job with virtual reality or with video, with traveling to Western countries to educate people. So I think that's definitely needed, because not everyone's lucky enough to go on African safari.
Yeah, definitely. Staying on the topic of tourism and sustainability, I think it's a bit controversial, as tourism, everybody's flying a lot. It's getting cheaper to fly. So back in the days, doing nice holidays was really something for the elite or for people who were wealthy enough, and now it's accessible for everybody. But now suddenly the people who traveled a lot tell others, you're not allowed to travel anymore because the environment is not fit. Where do you see us as a tourism industry and as a hospitality industry? What should we do to be able to be more sustainable, and what are the things what is that controversy? What do you think about flying? Saying you fly New York to London quite a bit. Is that
You're telling me you're not going by boat, Mark? What the hell?
No, I swim across the Atlantic. Right. I'm a big triathlete, so I fly. I'm ashamed. I fly. Sorry. I think that it's a tough one, right? I think that the way the world is, that it's so much easier, as you said, to fly, and we want to roll out this global brand, and it means that many of us are going to be flying. I think in terms of tourism, there's already, as you guys know, there's already a shift in tourism to more, people are making decisions based on sustainability. If I'm going to go to Africa and I'm going to spend $10,000 on a 2-week African safari, I want to understand where that money's going, and I will choose my tented camp or my hotel or my resort based on understanding what they do with their local community. And I think that's only going to get stronger. There's an amazing place in the Chulu Hills, an area of Kenya called Kampiakanzi, that is the most authentic eco lodge that I've ever experienced, and the work they do is phenomenal. They've built, just through their foundation, they've built clinics, they've built 20 schools on their group ranch. They do amazing conservation work, and I think people will research. They'll see a place like Kampiakanzi and say, I love the work they're doing with their local community. I can see lions and I can see cheetahs, and I know that, if I want, I can go into visit one of their schools or one of their clinics, or I can go with their trackers and when they collar lions, when they put collars on lions to track them, that can be part of my safari. So it's being more closely connected to the local community, the local wildlife, rather than just sitting in your Jeep and checking off, lions, leopards, cheetahs, rhinos, whatever. So I think that's definitely where tourism is going, certainly in developing countries, I would say.
Mark, it's too obvious of a comparison to not at least mention it and get your take on it, especially because you've worked in the company at some point in your life before. If you think about members clubs and certainly those that have got some form of international exposure around Europe, Soho House quite naturally comes to mind, right?
Soho what?
I'm not sure I'm familiar with the company either. You've worked for the Soho House group, Mark, and I realized that coming to this project now is probably your experience or part of what the founders saw in getting you on board. How do you compare I realize you don't like to compare yourself probably to that, but how do you compare? Because you must know that in the minds of some people it is a comparison that is quite naturally made. And how do you see yourself going into the competition with one or two things that you might have in the pipeline in the future and houses in international other landscapes? Where do you see yourself positioned against that?
Sure. Yeah, I shouldn't joke about Soho House. I had an unbelievable 5 years with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really, on so many parts of my life, it's enriched those parts of my life because of the 5 years I spent with Soho House and learning from this crazy guy called Nick Jones, and who's so inspiring in many ways, and meeting lifelong friends who are or were members of Soho House that has helped me, and absolutely, I'm sure a big part of getting this job was because I spent 5 years working with Soho House. I think that it's incredible how much they've grown since I joined them in 2004 and left in 2009, and since 2009 how much the company has grown. I don't think we ever have, in terms of comparing, I don't think we ever feel we'll get that big, though the more we open of the Conduit, the more impact I think we're having in the world. I think that they're very, they've always been very clear on their vision of it's creatives, whatever creatives mean, those are their members. We're very different in that we'll take whatever industry you're in, so long as somewhere in your life this ethos, this philosophy of I want to contribute to positive and social environmental change in the world. If that resonates with you and you're in hospitality, or you do podcasts, or you're technology, or you're a banker, or you're an actor, fantastic. We want you. So I think in terms of type of members, we have members here at the Conduit who are members of Soho House. And some of our members would not want to be there, and some of their members would not want to be here. So it's and then I think the amenity, they do some really interesting events. I think ours are more focused on social impact, and theirs are not. But that's their thing. So does that answer your question?
It does. I'm going to take the question a step further, Mark, and you've mentioned the fact that obviously, part of the beauty in many ways, I guess, of Soho House is the fact that they've got houses on different continents and in different countries here in Europe as well. How important do you reckon it is to get your message here with the Conduit, your ideas, your thriving for change out there? How important for that is it to expand? And also where would be my question. I don't necessarily want cities or names, but just to give me an idea of how easy is it to get a message out through one house here in London, as opposed to having potentially multiple units in other parts of the world, and what areas would be of interest?
Yeah, so it definitely, being in 5 cities around the world means that we'll get the word out 5 times or 10 times more than just being in one city. So we definitely want to expand to spread the word and spread our business, right?
Right.
So listen, I don't want to come across as like the sackcloth and ashes guy. We want to make money, right? We're here to make money, and we're here to make create impact in the world.
Yeah.
So we, as you guys know, we've been looking in Berlin. It's taken a little bit of a backseat because we're fully focused on New York now. We're hoping that we'll open 2 sites in New York in the next 3 years. And then I'm sure sometime in the next couple of years we'll go back to looking at Berlin. We're looking at LA, and then probably somewhere in Asia. One of our co-founders lives in Singapore, and we've talked a lot about Hong Kong, China, somewhere in Asia. And then, I'm Kenyan. Paul, one of our co-founders, is South African. We've got a real African soul, so we need to be in Africa.
Yeah.
So that's, we've always said 5 conduits in 10 years. So hopefully we'll achieve that.
Sounds good. Explain to me, Mark, also a little bit more of the internationality in your members. If we look at the idea of change, then most countries or most continents will now agree that probably using a little less single-use plastic is probably not a bad idea, right? Yet, you'll forgive me for saying this, the ideas of social change and environmental change still vary quite drastically in between certain countries. Having a members club in the UK, naturally, I would imagine the majority of your members currently are from the UK or within that vicinity. How easy is it, do you reckon, to have a national versus an international impact right now, as opposed to when you've developed other markets and also have other members of other countries in the large majority amongst yourselves?
Yeah, so we've seen that our members come from 35 different countries. Certainly the majority are living here. Probably 85% are living here in the UK, and the majority of those are living in London. So we have 10 or 15% who are overseas members. I think particularly through our programming, the events that we put on here, and also through Conduit Connect, the platform that we have, we're very international. So, out of those 3 companies that we've raised £4.1 million, I don't know if any of them are international, but I know that I've been to some of the Conduit Connect events, and the majority of the social enterprises that we're talking about are in the developing world. So I had a meeting this morning with this amazing guy who works for something called the African Prison Project, and they do work in East Africa in the prison system. They're also doing work in the UK. So I think through our, I'm sure that tonight when we're talking to Professor Yunus, it will be a lot of, social impact work in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. So we've definitely got a very international footprint, even though 85 or 90% of our members are based in the UK.
Give me some insights. How do you build a private members club? Like, what's the first thing? Do you look for members, or for you guys maybe more a certain ethos, and then you went, okay, we're looking for the right location and the right founding members, and then the whole operational aspect? Is that the process, and what was the most challenging part of this?
So we wanted to open in New York first because most of us were living there. There were 4 of us living there, but I think it was 4 out of 6 of us were living there. It was quite small back then, and so we wanted to open in New York, and we just figured that New York would be an amazing place. There's a massive social impact community there. People who are passionate about the social impact work. So we wanted to start there. We found an amazing building, and it sort of just went. It went from that. When we couldn't get planning permission on the building in New York, we found this amazing building here in London.
So was that like a quick decision, or like what was the time frame?
Yeah, so we'd been looking in both London and New York, and I think and we'd focus on both of those cities just because of being so present in the social impact space, as well as the fact that I've previously worked in London. A few of us have been educated here. Our CFO is English or is British.
We speak the language.
We speak the language mostly, yeah. So it was those two, and then it was natural that once we opened here, we were very much focused on New York.
Give me just as we're talking about founding and starting, is there any story that comes to mind right off from the beginning where you were thinking, oh God, it's all about to go downhill? Or is there a funny story where you thought we planned this but then got something completely different? Give me one juicy story, because I can tell from your laugh that there's something.
Well, I didn't know what I can be sued over. I don't know.
Nobody listens to this, so it's all right.
Oh, great. I'm so glad we're dedicating our time to this. Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, the normal trials and tribulations of, coming up with an idea and then thinking it's going to look like this and work like this, and then we open the doors and it absolutely doesn't. I think the opening was, I think we were supposed to open in May of last year, 2019.
2018.
2018. See how old and see that. I hope the last guy was much younger than me. So we were supposed to open in May. We ended up opening in September, October. And so in March, we called the chef Massimo Bottura and we said, we'd like you to be our first guest chef. And, you're an amazing chef and you best restaurant in the world. But it's more about, the work you do with homeless communities and the work you do with being so cutting edge in terms of being sustainable, local, organic, all the rest of it. And she said, fine, fantastic. And then I think we booked him in for September the 25th for that week. And September the 20th, we were still in a building site. And Massimo came on the 24th, and the day before we were opening. So the day we opened we were opened with Massimo Bottura. And he walked through the day before and he's like, what are you thinking? Huh? This is not going to open tomorrow. And we're like, what do you mean? Of course, we're almost there. And of course, the next day we opened, because you do, and we all worked all night and what have you. And being able to say for the next however many years we're around that the first plate of food that came out of a kitchen was cooked by Massimo Bottura and his team is just amazing. So that was an amazing, just everybody coming together and having him. And by the fifth day, he was, finished service and was out with our bartenders and our cooks and going to cocktail bars in London till 4:00 in the morning, and just loved what we were doing. And he was just this amazing opening for us. So that was special.
For us, when we giving a bit of background, the first time we met in the development phase of the building, you guys decided to give the whole IT strategy aspect of the building as a group project to students at hotel school.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
What were you thinking? And just taking that as, is that part of the ethos too, trusting younger people, trusting maybe people in your organization also to take responsibility and just see, like, let's see how it goes? Or was that a one-off and then you said never again?
Never again with Lausanne. No, of course we would love to go back to Lausanne every time. Totally. We want to we want to do things differently when it comes to empowering people, the way we treat people, where we hire and recruit from. I think, with technology, I think at the time I was the oldest on the team at the age of 50, and so you guys at the age of 21 or whatever tender,
isn't he charming?
Tender ages you were, obviously understood technology way better than most of us did. But that's definitely been a cornerstone of how I think we're creating quite a unique ethos that we recruited when we opened from an organization called Brigade that takes homeless people and trains them in kitchens, and we hired a few amazing people here from Brigade, and we use Good Hotel. It's this wonderful organization that takes disadvantaged people, trains them in their hotel. They have a hotel in Docklands, and then helps them find jobs. One of our loveliest barbacks, who's been here since the beginning, came from there. We're starting to work with the Clink, which does restaurants and prisons. And I think this is, it's challenging, obviously. Like they're perhaps spending a bit more time and effort on some people who maybe have just come out of prison or been homeless 24 months ago. But how amazing does your soul have the potential to be special when you have a mix of people from, Lausanne students and somebody who was living on the streets 24 months ago. So I think that's definitely a part of what we want to continue to nurture our soul that way.
These are definitely very inspiring stories, and I mean, for us also, like looking back at it, the experience which we got working on this project is definitely one of the foundations of our company today. And I think without that, we would not. I would definitely not be sitting here. I think I would be somewhere doing real estate development or some finance stuff. But yeah, it's giving trust to, as you say, not just young people, but also people with a difficult background or a difficult story. And yeah, it's impressive that you guys live that whole ethos from the members onto to your staff, onto projects.
You saying that means a lot, by the way. So thank you.
Mark, is there a very general and probably too broad question, but I'll ask it anyways. Is there too little of that in the world at the moment? Of not forgetting those who maybe are not as fortunate as the three of us who are here, because I realize that obviously it's part of your ethos, and that's why you do all the projects that you do. Politely said, you will forgive me for saying it this blunt, but there's some other hotel or tourism companies or members clubs that are not quite as active in that direction for various reasons, I suppose. Would you recommend this to other businesses, and how would you go about it if you were not already in an ecosystem as you are here with the Conduit, where it fits, let's be honest, quite nicely?
Yeah, I think that like I said about sustainability, every single business in the world should be doing this. Like, this should be the driving factor for every single business in the world. How can we not support disadvantaged people coming from harder times? How can we not be constantly thinking about our footprint in the planet? Like, every single company should be doing this. And granted, so much easier because this is our philosophy when we started thinking about this company. So it's much easier to open with we had two sustainability consultants when we renovated this building. There's a lot of stuff that we don't do. We did open with single-use plastic in one of our kitchens. Now we've come to no single-use plastic in both our kitchens. But when you've been, I work for Four Seasons, an amazing company. When you've got a hotel that's 40 years old, how do you suddenly say, okay, we're gonna be completely environmentally, this, that, and the other, and we're going to support all the rest of it, and you're used to making this much profit, and potentially for the short term you're going to make less profit because you're going to be giving away to the local homeless shelter, or you're going to be letting your people have a day off once a month to go work on whatever their charity of choice is. So I think, yes, it takes a real shift in culture, but I'm also a firm believer in when you orient your company with a soul like that, you will make more profit at the end of the day. I mean, there's so much research. We all know companies that are doing that are, as a result, making more money.
Yeah. As you know, Mark, nothing on this episode or on this podcast is planned, but I did just think of a question that I wanted to ask, because everything you've now said and explained and mentioned sounds so good and wonderful, and you obviously are doing a lot of things in a way that other companies are not. Give me one challenge, because there must be challenges somewhere, or maybe not challenges, but difficulties in implementing what you guys have planned, that have nothing to do with the financials, because I imagine that as any company, being profitable is not easy right off the bat.
Sure. So I'll give you two.
Sounds good.
So one is, so this is a bit finance related, but we opened, and within 3 months we had people. We had a ton of people here during the day and a lot less people at night, and we didn't really foresee that. We thought there would be more of a balance, and it's been a real challenge to shift that, because people would be here during the day and having meetings and connecting and collaborating, and it was fantastic, and they wouldn't really think about, oh, this is a place I can hang out and get great food and have a couple of beers with my mates or whatever. So it's been a challenge, and we've invested in an amazing woman who is really working on our nightlife. We've got some great musical acts and DJs and all the rest of it, and so that's been a challenge. And then, I mean, nobody listens to this, right? So
Absolutely not.
So I've had the hardest year of my marriage in the last 12 months, apart from 3 months ago when things started to move around. And it's funny, I've learned a lot about mental health since working with the Conduit, and I think it's really important to talk about these things. Like I'm have a lot of friends. I have an amazing family. I've been married for 21 years, and my wife and I hit a massive wall. And it's been, there were times where I'm like, I can't do this anymore, because my marriage is way more important than anything else. And we found, through an amazing friend, an incredible therapist, and if anyone afterwards wants the name of this incredible therapist in London, who has changed our lives and helped work with us to make our marriage stronger. So that's been a really big challenge.
Amazing words, if I may say. Thank you for sharing that with us. And let me ask straight towards that topic. Do you reckon that there's a lot of people who might have faced similar problems, or who are facing similar problems in an industry like hospitality, where clearly there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, this, that, and the other, and they forget about their private life, which we all know is probably the most important thing in the world, and don't talk about it, and certainly not as openly as you, and say, listen, we need to get help, because otherwise this is not going to work for me in a private life nor in the business life, because naturally both are somewhat connected.
Yeah, I think people don't talk about it enough. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that there's a few members here who are working in the mental health space, and one in particular who is really encouraging sort of C-suite people to be talking about their mental well-being. And we've had members events about it. I think the beauty of your generation, and I think you guys are so much smarter than my generation, is that well,
we think we're smarter.
Well, many of you are.
Okay, fair enough.
That understand that the balance in your lives, especially in hospitality, you guys know that. When I was in my 20s, it was just accepted that you work day and night all the time, and you don't have any social life, and you shouldn't have a social life. Like, you work because you prove yourself, because you're in your 20s and you're starting out and you're assistant restaurant manager or whatever it is, and you guys seem to have a much better handle on my personal life is incredibly important to me. And if you're going to give me the opportunity to have time off, have 2 days off a week, be able to take sabbaticals after this amount of time, go work on my charity project once a quarter or twice, whatever, then I think we're getting so much smarter to understand that this is really important enough, because if I nurture that part of my life, I'm bringing so much more to my job.
Where do you see the industry stand on that topic? I hear from some general managers in the hotel industry who say the younger generation are just lazy, and then you saying actually it's, work-life balance is something sustainable. It needs to be if you want to be working efficiently for many years, or effectively better. Where do you think the hospitality industry stands on this topic?
I hate to generalize, and I don't know those I've met those kind of general managers, and my feeling is those are old school general managers stuck in, when I worked at the Conduit Hotel, and that's what we did, and they need to. I don't think it's anything to do with laziness. It's about having much better perspective and much better balance and much better grasp that I'm gonna contribute more to my job and more to my organization, whoever I work for, if I'm walking in with peace in my life and balance in my life, and I've been able to take my kids to school in the morning, or I've had time with my boyfriend or my girlfriend or whatever. So I think that the industry is definitely not there yet. But
do you think this will also make a big impact to keep talent in the industry? And because we spoke about it, or it's a typical subject that a lot of talent starts in the hospitality industry and then leaves somewhere else because they realize I can't work 12 hours a day if I want to start a family. Or
I think so. I think if we wake up and realize that that's important to all generations, certainly the younger generation, because they're voicing it more clearly to us, that we will do better when it comes to retention.
I want to change topic a bit and ask the question: private members club, but no rooms. Yeah. Was that planned from the beginning, or is it just the building which decided that, or will the next Conduit maybe have rooms? What's your take on it?
This building, we wanted rooms. This building's not big enough. The building I think we'll get in New York is not big enough for rooms. I would love that. My background is I started at 16 in hotels. It's my background. I would love there to be rooms, and I think it adds a lot as well. That when you
do you think it changes the DNA also of the whole aspect, how people communicate, how people use the club, maybe stay late at night because they don't need to go to another hotel?
I think it changes the DNA in terms of your guests who come from abroad or another city that are suddenly immersed in this amazing local thing. So if you come from, if we have bedrooms in New York and you come from LA or Austin or Nairobi and you land at the Conduit in New York and you're staying in the hotel, and then you come to this amazing event, and then you stand at the bar and you're talking to 7 locals who are passionate about the same. I think it totally changes the dynamic and creates so much more value for your hotel brand. So it's going to definitely depend on the cities we're in and the buildings we find, but I would love there to be bedrooms.
Mark, you'll forgive me again for saying this, but you're a special guy. Thank you very much for this. As I said before we pressed record, there's 3 questions we ask everyone at the end. So if you bear with me on this, but they're very open questions. So you're more than welcome to answer in any direction you like. The first question is a very simple one. My favorite part about hospitality is.
Okay, my favorite part about hospitality is. It's so corny, but it has to be the people, right? It totally is the people. Like we have an intern working with us who actually, because nepotism is alive and well at the Conduit, she's the daughter of an old family friend,
right.
And to see her just thriving in this environment, and I slacked her manager today and said, how's she doing? And she wrote back, she's an absolute angel. And it's fantastic, and I just feel so great. I sat down with her yesterday. She's loving it here, and that just boosts you so much. And it's not just people we work with, but that's right. That's a massive part of it.
Yeah.
It's the members. It's bumping into Shan today, the woman with the plastic planet, who I hadn't seen for a month or 2 months, and she comes up to me and gives me a big hug, and I tell her what's going on, and I ask about her family. She asks about my family and what she's doing with. It's fantastic that it's all about that. It's all about the people.
My last trip I stayed in.
My last trip I stayed
that was not at home,
in,
obviously.
I have not had a lot of trips because of the Conduit. I'm not going to get all bitchy and moany here. But, wow, what was my last trip? Oh, so I think at Christmas time we went upstate New York, and there's this lovely hotel upstate New York called Troutbeck, steeped in history, beautiful surroundings. A friend owns it, and another friend runs it. Troutbeck, New York.
Nice place
Check
to
it
go.
out.
Nice place to visit. The next, and this is the last question, Mark, the next big thing in hospitality is, or we can also rephrase it a little bit, should be maybe.
The next big thing in hospitality, it needs to be sustainable travel. Like, absolutely, we should not stay at some generic hotel that does nothing in terms of impact, in terms of supporting the local community, in terms of hiring locals and, you know, embracing the local homeless shelter, whatever, something. Like, you need to be doing something, and I would hope it needs to be a lot. So I think that tourism is, as we've talked about, is heading in that direction, and that needs to be where we go. We spend our money in places that are responsible businesses. That's what we should be doing.
Mark, please don't ever change, and please don't ever change what you're doing. Thank you very much for your time, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you inviting me.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. As always, don't forget to check out what there is to know about Smack at smack.media or on our YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook accounts. We'll see you next time.